Welcome. I am Dennis Carpenter, Director of Education Operations here at ThoughtExchange, and I am super excited to be hosting today's virtual event. In almost any business, the most important person you want to hear from in that business is your customer. Dare I say, there is no way to be successful in the area of business without listening to and responding to the voice of your customer. Unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case in a place called school. When we really get down to it, the customer is the boy and or the girl who stands before us each and every day as we attempt to impart a quality education experience. And there's no other way than to hear that voice for us to prepare them for their future versus indoctrinating them into our past. So we're excited today because when I was in the role, I needed help in that area. And my guess is many of you who are grappling with this notion of student voice, you too are here seeking support in that area. By way of the 50 people on this call and the well over 100 who registered, we know that this is an important topic. And when topics are this important for a group like ThoughtExchange that's committed to scaling education, we believe in seeking out the experts. We believe in seeking out the voices of the experts. So we're excited to have Mike Lubberfeld with us today. Mike and I have shared stages before during my time as superintendent, but as you can see, he's gone to bigger and better heights. Served as a superintendent in the state of Illinois since 2010. In addition, he's worked as an adjunct professor and supervisor at National Louis University and Loyola University in Chicago, and in the departments of educational leadership. Nearly 30 years as a public servant in the field of education, superintendent, assistant superintendent, middle school principal, teacher. And he's the co-moderator of the monthly Twitter chat that we all love and follow, #SoupChat. They've also co-authored a couple of books, The Unlearning Leader, The Unfinished Learning, and the one that we're going to center today, Student Voice, From Invisible to Valuable. From invisible to valuable. I'm excited. I'm not going to waste your time. Let's turn it over to Mike, my good friend.
Dennis, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It is an unbelievable honor to be here with everybody today. Just phenomenal. I'm really grateful to you. I'm really lucky. I just started my timer so I don't mess up the timing for everybody. I am happy you're here. We're going to talk a little bit about student voice from invisible to invaluable. These slides are available to you, and I'll put this back up at the end, but it's a bit.ly, and the end of the bit.ly is TE Student Voice 2021, TE Student Voice 2021, and I'll come back to that. So if you want the slides, want links to the videos, you got it. Thank you for the great bio and intro. I genuinely appreciate it. So we're going to start with a quote. Really, the premise of the book, the premise of student voice in leadership, the premise of incorporating the voices, feelings, and being of our main stakeholders in schools is captured here. Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. So really, what's powerful about this and what resonates with me and with in the case of the book with Nick and with PJ is we're all people, right? In the present tense. We may be in our 50s like myself, or 40s, 30s, 20s, 60s, 70s, wherever we are. Our learning is awesome and cool and fun and powerful, yet it may or may not be the learning of our youngsters. And often it's certainly not going to limit our youngsters. So what do we do to live that out? Well, one thing is we start looking at some data or some information. So I start by giving you something a bit depressing, but don't worry, we'll end. It'll be a lot more exciting. This was a Gallup student poll from a couple years ago. And the title is sobering: The School Cliff. Students' engagement drops over time. And I know we all talk about engagement, empowerment, all that, but let's talk about the engagement. So the elementary school students, 76% at the snapshot of this Gallup poll a few years ago said, hey, we are fully engaged in school. By 61, it dropped to 61% at middle school. But then it kept dropping in high school. Now, as a former middle school teacher and administrator, I could always say, heck, in the middle, we're all a little crazy, we're all a little off. We can see a dip in the middle. We're just really figuring out what's going on, and there's so much change. But to see that dip continue in high school is very discouraging, because the young children become young adults. They become adults in the high school. So what's going on, and how can we change that? How can we increase the voice? How can we provide access and equity of voice to children so this goes up or this stays the same? So one of the suggestions we've got, and this is a kind of a catchy end of chapter feature in the book, is ask them. If you're not sure what the students are thinking, really, as simple as it sounds, just ask them. Ask what's going on. Support what they need. Support what they need goes back to that first quote. What do they need? Get to know them and get to know what they're about. Empower them. Sit next to them, shoulder to shoulder, and then monitor the impact of their communication, of their expressions of request for support, of their knowledge, and how you're empowering them. It all sounds simple, and it's not. So here's a tangible, concrete, do now, or you can do this too. What I'm sharing with you here shows you two-dimension results from a survey known as the Student Engagement Survey. In real life, as a practicing superintendent, this is the second district where I've actually had my students, principals, teachers, students administer this to all children in grades 3 through 8. We're elementary school here, go 312. These are results of a student engagement survey. Choice is defined as it's stated up here, levels of freedom that a student feels when they are deciding the types of assignments or projects they will work on in class. So a 3.09 signifies neutrality. 5 is strongly agree. 1 is strongly disagree. So on this one, in choice and relevance, we're both in the 3, the neutrality. From these results, students in grades 3 through 8 in a school district, at a snapshot in time, indicated they have some freedom about how they can decide on the assignments and projects they'll work on. They don't really feel strongly that what they're learning in class is applicable and useful to their lives. So pause there for a minute. We want to know what the students are saying. We want to give them voice. We want to take it from invisible to invaluable. One of the ways to do it is take a survey, get the results, and then the next step is break it down. Now, what are you going to do about it? Assemble groups of students on a committee with a group of teachers and administrators, and you can set action plans. Over the most recent 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020, the box that represents the percentage of students in grades 3-8 highly satisfied and highly engaged with all dimensions of their schooling went from 34.73 to 30.45 up to 36.57 during the pandemic. We'll measure it again this year and see what it is. Always public accountability, always publish the results. Now I'm going to shift voice and hear you listen to the story of our district. Another way to empower students to hear their voice by actually listening to a young man. This young man, he's going to narrate for you. So thanks for taking a listen for a couple minutes.
North Shore School District 112 students are curious, innovative, and passionate learners. We are scholars, athletes, artists, actors, and advocates who are dedicated to bringing positive change to our community and our world. The district motto is Inspire, Innovate, Engage. We are thankful to attend school in a district with teachers, staff, administrators, parents, and neighbors who are committed to ensuring that we have the best education and our district is a model for all others. Our community builds on a strong legacy of excellence, continuing to challenge ourselves and reach even higher through creativity and collaboration. North Shore School District 112 is a great place to learn, and it's getting better every day. We are proud to live in Highwood, Fort Sheridan, and Highland Park. The district has recently added brand new math and language arts curricular resources with plans to introduce new science, social studies, and other resources in the near future. Our dual language two-way immersion Spanish-English program provides students with the opportunity to learn and serve as positive role models in English and Spanish, building a valuable set of intercultural skills in mixed language classrooms. In addition, our teachers are engaged in expanding professional development meant to leverage the latest research and add new tools to their instructional toolkit. The district is also implementing a long-range plan to ensure our school buildings are modernized to provide state-of-the-art learning environments for all students. This plan for our future will upgrade classrooms, performing art spaces, cafeterias, and learning commons in both of our middle schools over the next few years. Our district provides us with a world-class academic experience. At North Shore School District 112, students aren't just prepared for higher learning. We are prepared to become lifelong, engaged global citizens. We are surrounded by a talented and capable community of teachers and staff, and we expect excellence for all of our students. We are resilient.
Somos fuertes. We are unstoppable.
We are District 112.
It's really cool for us to have students as partners in our work. We have students who narrate videos like that, tell our story. We have students who are part of what we call the Modern Learning Committee with parents, Board of Education members, teachers, building and district level administrators, and they came up with our portrait of a graduate. So we've got measure student engagement with the student engagement survey, publish it, act on it, and keep going back to it. We have used the actual voice of students to tell our story, to narrate and change the narration and change whatever perceptions may be. And then have students sit down with us and actually be at the table, be at the leadership table, be at the thinking table, and be equal partners in the leadership and creation of vision, mission, value, and goals for the school district. It is something we're very proud of. The portrait of a graduate, many districts have it. They're awesome wherever we've got it. And our students helped us define this, and our students helped us craft this. So before I come to a close in a few minutes, I'm going to share with you a student narrated portrait of a video graduate. Better for the student to tell you about this than for me. Another way of getting student voice elevated and amplified and actually at the table.
As we plan today for a brighter tomorrow for District 112, a group of students, parents, and educators have established a set of attributes that define an aspirational vision for District 112 students. These attributes include having the knowledge to find and evaluate information, the perseverance to learn new concepts and innovate, the empathy to embrace diverse perspectives and be open to new ideas, the courage to make positive change on a local, national, and global level, the desire to not only meet expectations, but to exceed them both as a person and student, the confidence to take risks, keep trying, and own the results of our learning, and the commitment to always ask questions, search for better answers, and stay curious. Learn more about how students, parents, and staff are building the future for District 112 at nsd112.org/modern learning.
So hearing about it from Faith is far more powerful than hearing about it from me or from any other adult or administrator. There's other ways to have students involved. Have them present at parent nights, like it's just depicted here. This young lady is Kyla Guru, and she was a keynoter, a student who was a keynoter at a parent technology event. Just another example of bringing students to the forefront to share about their world and their learning with parents or with others. As everybody on this call knows, the secret in education lies in respecting the student. And in doing so, we don't need anything other than often time, desire, motivation, and a couple examples as to how to do it. Ask them questions in a survey, then tell them what you heard them say, work together to interpret it, set goals, and act on it. Run a video that's describing something going on in the district for whatever purpose, then have students help you narrate it, and even have students help you storyboard it or tell the story of education. At an event that's depicting something about the education going on in the schoolhouse, bring a student to be the voice to actually talk to the parents about it. And as we say in the book, ask them, ask, support, know, ask them, empower, monitor. Folks, I yield with 2 more minutes in my presentation. I promised the Thought Exchange folks I would be on time. So I'm going to yield with 1:46 seconds and turn it back over to my friend Dennis from Thought Exchange. Wait, you're muted, my friend.
Thank you so much, Mike. And what a presentation. And I would just say to our folks here, the book takes you even deeper. So the student voice, invisible to invaluable, definitely worth a quick read and study for those who are committed to a student-centered educational experience. At this time, we want to have the same level of engagement with our webinar participants. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, my friend, Mr. James Hager, who will get us started with this exchange. James.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dennis. And thanks so much for taking us through your thinking there, Mike. That was really awesome. And to Dennis's point, we have a huge wealth of experience in this virtual room today. And so we really want to make sure that we take some time to hear your thoughts and perspectives and really use that to focus the remainder of the time that we have together here and really drill in to what's top of mind for you based on what we've heard and discussed already. And so to do that, we're going to run a really quick thought exchange. And so I've shared my screen here. What I'm going to do is invite you to participate in this conversation. And it's a really simple way to do it effectively. What you're going to do is have an opportunity to reflect on this question, reflecting on what you just heard. What are your thoughts, questions, and/or areas you'd like to hear more about? And that will give an opportunity to both Mike and Dennis to really focus the remainder of this dialogue on things that are really most important to you. And so there's a couple of ways for you to join the conversation. If you have your phone close by, you can open the camera, point it at the QR code, and that will generate a link on your screen. And I'm also going to just drop a link into the chat box so that you can join that way by clicking on the link. And so I'm going to do that right now. And really all you need to know here is treat this as an opportunity to dig deep, to reflect on really what you want to push both Mike and Dennis to expand on, and treat it as an opportunity to really inquire and deepen your own learning in an actionable way. And so the more specific that you can be about what you really want to talk about, the better this conversation will be. And there's a couple of things to keep in mind as you move through the process. You're going to have the opportunity first to share your own thoughts and questions and really expand on what's top of mind for you. And then once you've done that, you're going to be invited to respond and rate some of the thoughts that your peers in this session have also contributed so that we can really get a collective understanding of what's most important to the group. Within the few minutes that I'm going to give you, please, please, please try to at least share one thought each. and try to rate as many thoughts as you can in the next few minutes. The more rating we have, the better focus will be in the remainder of the conversation. And I'm going to be quiet and let you do that for the next few minutes. It's going to be silent, but in real time, there's actually going to be a super vibrant conversation happening through the thought exchange. So we've got 36 people in the exchange so far. I'd love to urge the rest of you to jump in and share your own thoughts and perspectives. Even if you don't have a unique thought that you need to share, you can also have your voice reflected in this conversation by rating the thoughts of your peers. And again, the whole process is anonymous. It's really putting the focus on the quality of idea rather than on the person who's sharing it, so that we can really use this time to deepen our learning and be on point. We've got a great resource in having Mike Lubefeld here with us, and we want to make sure that we really drive at some impact through this time together.
I love the real-time chart, James. It's so powerful, visualizing our connection right now.
Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, this just is really illustrating the dynamism of thought that exists within this group today. And as you see there on the right-hand side of the screen that I'm sharing right now, all the thoughts that are emerging within the discussion and moving up and down based on how they're being interacted with and rated by all of us here in this session today. And what we're going to do in a couple minutes is really use these results to drive the remainder of our conversation. So keep going. If you're sharing your thought or thinking about doing that, I'd urge you to please contribute your perspective. It's valuable and important. And once you've had a chance to share, you can rate as many thoughts as you can. So I'm going to give you about another minute. For context, we've had about 47 people who've shared 43 unique thoughts and closing in on 700 ratings. The ratings are really what contextualize and give some prioritization to the different perspectives being shared. And Mike, I'd encourage you to just see what some of those top thoughts are, because we're going to be driving forward using some of those once we've come through this part of the process.
You got it. I'm looking at the all thoughts right now, highest rated.
Yep.
This is great.
So if you have just a few more thoughts to rate, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. I know that the time is tight, but 1 hour of your time is a very precious resource, and we want to make sure that we use it in the most substantive way possible. And so with that, thank you for taking time to participate in our exchange this morning. I'm going to close it off, so you won't be able to participate anymore, but you've already given us a great gift with this really great participation so far. And now we're gonna jump into the meat and potatoes of this here. So we've got some awesome thoughts shared here, and just sort of starting at the very top here. around what are some concrete strategies for student voice, for engaging student voice. The specific thoughts are very important since so many of us come from different backgrounds. Mike and Dennis, would love to throw to you to just hear thoughts and reactions in response to this question.
Absolutely. Mike, you get us started and I'll definitely chime in. And James, if there's a good point to definitely show the analytics and the Discover dashboard that how this conversation has really broken down as we start moving through the thoughts, that would be awesome as well. Mike, get us started with the first question.
All right, so going beyond what I shared in the first few minutes of surveys and committees, I will give you a couple other very concrete examples. So in various points of my career, we've designed learning spaces, classrooms, libraries, and science labs. So when the architects came to meet with the administrators and the board, we also created real intentional space that was deliberate and authentic to have students involved. So one opportunity, we had architects come and do a grade level presentation for, let's just say, 7th grade students through their English class, where it was a combination of career exploration and we're doing something in the school. Can you all, get together and write or design what you would love to see in a library? We also came to lunch periods with advance notice and butcher block paper on big tables and invited students in to write down areas, concepts, or components of the design they'd like to see in the library, the science labs, the classroom. Then when it came to furniture, we actually had a gallery walk with examples of furniture in the gymnasium for a week, and we had teachers bring the students in to sit down in the furniture and rate it. And then I think more important than all that, when the space was built and when the furniture was bought, we reminded everybody of what parts of this were influenced by students. And to the degree practical, if we changed or modified or expanded something, we did it because the students asked us to. Real life, real time, a number of different settings, couple different districts.
Wow, that is powerful. I'm really reflecting as I've had the opportunity to sit here and listen to Mike around this notion of student voice. And I always believe myself to be an advocate of students and their voice being centered in the education experience. And another thing that I was always an advocate of is our students, their time, their learning, all of those things were precious. And they didn't have time for me as superintendent or building principal to make things up. So I always believed in consulting the research.
Sure.
And Sylvia Duckworth's work always stood out to me. Sylvia's work talked about student voice being on a continuum. And it's the teacher or the leader's job to make sure that every day throughout that learning experience, you're navigating that continuum. So she would say that the beginning of that continuum is teacher-centered student voice. Students get to offer an opinion. They get to participate in their learning plan. They get to take a survey. That's involvement, that's voice, but it's teacher-centered. The next step she would talk about is that learner-centered student voice. That's where students get to attend activities, not just student activities, but activities that adults are a part of, whether they be board meetings or whether they be building leadership team meetings. And they get to articulate those action steps that they believe to be necessary to meet their goals. They get to collaborate with adults. That's learner-centered. And then Sylvia would say the highest level is that learner-driven student voice. And that learner-driven student voice comes by way of activism. That comes by way of identifying the problem and generating the solutions, and adults listen at the same rate they would listen to another adult. And then from there, there's true leadership around their voice, where they get to guide groups of learners, student and adult, and they co-plan those plans that are most beneficial for their learning experience. So always thinking about that continuum as a leader, how do I, number one, get moving on the continuum from teacher-centered or adult-centered to learner-centered, and then really getting to that point of activism in their learning, and that learning is then learner-driven. That's that continuum of voice that I've always tried to follow. But very, very good question, and I see why it's the top thought.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you both for that. And just wanted to, for what it's worth, add my own 2 cents in saying that, highlighting in both what you said, it's not a one and done. It's not an exercise in checking a box. It's a core belief of what is vital to keep in mind in policy and in practice throughout the course of how you do your work. And so love that you both highlighted that in some powerful ways. Just looking at a few of the other key thoughts that have arisen in this conversation as well, we see a couple of highly rated thoughts that really drill into how do we intentionally include the voices of our many marginalized scholars, appreciating that oftentimes things like general surveys may mask the uniqueness of their voice. And so how do we expand and diversify and hear from more than the usual suspects?
Wow, a system is perfectly designed, James, participants, Mike, you've heard this before, but a system is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting.
Yep.
And that same thing is true as it relates to student voice. If being involved in a student is looked at as a reward for high performance or the like, then we know in the school experience how our data breaks down and what that's going to get us in terms of student participation. We know that our traditionally students who come from families that may live in poverty are probably not going to be the highest performers in our school district by and large. So you're going to miss them if that's the way you design your system. We all know that our schools have not become so anti-racist that our Black and brown students are performing systemically on par with their white peers. So if we know that to be true and we use the opportunity to bring your voice to the table as a reward, then that system is going to get a very, very predictable result. So then how do you look at our students who may not be experiencing the highest level of success in the way that we do schooling and be very, very intentional about including them in student voice spaces?
Excellent.
If you say, and I've been a part of systems that have done this, so I'm very, very passionate about this, James, but if you say, we're going to get student voice and you can be a part of the principal's council or the superintendent's council, but you got to come after school and you got to provide your own transportation to be a part of it. When you do that, you've already isolated the most marginalized learners. So as superintendent, I was very, very intentional. I had our students from across the educational continuum be a part of my council. I held it in the middle of the day. I transported them by way of bus, Kelly Wachel and I, and we provided a lunch unlike the lunch they received in school. So that was exciting for us because we knew we were getting a genuine cross-section of students in that high quality experience that we offer monthly in the middle of the school day. So that's one way to make certain what gets scheduled gets done, and a system is perfectly designed to get the result that it's getting. So as leaders, we have to redesign that system to be more equitable.
Dennis, very difficult to follow that. Beautiful response and great way of doing it. Another way is simply making sure that the survey also has demographic characteristics to check off. So make sure when you're doing the disaggregation or the analysis, you can analyze by gender, by race, by ethnicity, by any other box or way that you want to identify the children, to make sure you're looking at it then. Don't just have the box, but then look at it then. Just say, are girls thinking about it differently than boys? Are people who are non-binary gender reacting differently? So, really giving that space and going back and analyzing it, and everything you said as well, very well.
Beautiful. We've got a question here that really, I think, taps into this this challenge of getting the real raw perspective and feedback, and creating a space where students and young people want to share what they really think. And so here's the question: how do you build trust for students to share openly and honestly with teachers and administrators? Would love to hear both of you gentlemen expand on that.
Sure. The best way I've seen it done is with teachers who have established trusting, honest, authentic relationships with students, all students, and have them lead a focus group or a series of focus groups. Reach out to students privately to find out who are they willing to talk to, who are the teachers that they can be real with. And again, take that risk or that vulnerability, whether it's an administrator or a counselor or even parent leadership, finding out we want to create this space, be clear, be coherent, be deliberate and intentional. We want to hear from you. Who are you likely to share with? Sometimes you got to bring in experts from the outside, focus groups, but really deliberate and intentional, trusted teachers, and just have real talk during the school day. Food always helps. I agree with Dennis. Food's a motivator, but really it's the same way you diversify the groups of students. You don't simply say, I want everybody in the Spirit Club to be on the advisory committee. No, Spirit Club's awesome. Spirit Club's awesome. It's for Spirit Club. For diversity, for advisory, I may need teachers, principals, counselors, parents, other students to recruit a friend or recruit a child. Avoid tokenism by reaching out very carefully and very deliberately. And that's how you diversify the group. And that's how you get people to feel comfortable. So you're not the one person, name the ethnicity. No. You're not there for a box check. You're there as groups of people because we really want to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. And Mike, so spot on. We've all heard in the field of education that students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
I would always say that students don't care that what you have to say is really important until they know how real you are. What do I mean when I say that? Oftentimes as educators, we say we meet children where they are as it relates to their learning. We meet them where they are and we build them from there. I would say in order for a student to see how real you are, then you need to meet them where they are in the physical sense. So it was not uncommon for me as superintendent to know where students convene in the evenings and pop up there, to know where they convene at football games and not be the superintendent or the principal that set up with all the parents, but really going to that area beside the concession stand where all the students would congregate. And then listening and being a part of the conversation. Man, and then before I leave, say, I better get some applications for that superintendent advisory council before I leave. Just casually sneaking that in there. And by Wednesday of the following week, the applications are coming in.
That's right.
Because that superintendent was crazy enough to meet me where I was in the physical sense during class changes. Oh, their classroom changes at high school. They're changing classes in about 30 minutes at high school A. Let me get out there and talk to some kids. So now there's a level of realness, and kids have this meter that goes on and off if they don't believe you're real.
Exactly.
And if they don't believe you are really doing this work with them in mind. They have a meter that can pick up on a checkbox item so fast, you're only fooling yourself if you don't believe they can pick up on the fact that you're doing this just to check a box. So be real. Kids want us to be real. Dare I say they're demanding us to be real.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Absolutely. No question about it.
I'm just going to use the privilege of being able to speak here to actually drill in a little bit and ask you both, how do you deal with receiving inconvenient feedback? What I mean by that is hearing student perspectives that may not slot in nicely to the narrative or direction that you're trying to build towards. What do you do in that circumstance? As you were talking about, Dennis, meet them where they're at. What if that where they're at isn't necessarily where you want them to be? I'd love to hear you just talk about how you navigate that.
Yeah, I've experienced that over the course of my career. And my question would be, what would a superintendent do if they're finishing up year one of their contract, of a 3-year contract, and they received inconvenient information or feedback from their school board. My guess is that superintendent would try to figure it out and get it right so that they can persist in that work. So my question would be, why is the voice of students any different? If I stop, pause, and reflect because my quote unquote boss has concerns about how the leadership is moving in the district, then I should have that same caution when my customer airs something that might not be what I want them to air. So oftentimes, the privilege we have as adults in leadership roles in organizations, if we're not careful to check that privilege, then we have a way of explaining student feedback away. But I was always one that believed in keeping my principals and my cabinet accountable to the voices of students.
Yeah.
By doing what we do at ThoughtExchange, and that's asking the right questions. And then when you get that first inclination to explain away, maybe there's a follow-up question until we really get to the point that, you know, Carpenter's not going to go away until we really hear the voice of these children. And that's just how dogmatic we have to be about doing what's right for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Affirm every point Dennis made. Follow up, involve the child and some of their peers in the group at a conference table and sit down and listen. If it's something about, let's say, a curriculum program, you know, just kind of make it up hypothetically. Listen to what the inconvenient or criticism is. What is it about it? Just define it, no judgment. Let me hear it. Let our team hear it. Let the administrators hear it. Let the teachers hear it. Define the problem so we can do what Covey says, right? Seek first to understand. We don't have to justify why we're doing it. We don't have to justify all the great thinking that went into it. Understand why it's not working. And then see if we can explain our why and our purpose to the kids. And if we can articulate it clearly and coherently, and there's a gap between what the why is and how it's being received, talk through with the kids. We thought this would work. Here's really what we want to do. Well, we thought it was this. We wanted to do this. We want the time for this. And broker a compromise solution and come back and revisit it. Treat it any way we would treat any other system or systemic problem or opportunity for improvement in the environment.
Wow. James, I know time is getting to the point where it might get away from us. Let's go into the Discover dashboard and show everyone how this conversation has really broken down.
Perfect.
You bet. So I'm sharing my screen here. This is in essence where all the results from this exchange that we just ran live, and a bunch of different ways to look at the data. Dennis, I thought we could start off by jumping into this word cloud. How does that sound?
Oh, I love this.
So if you look
what we see here, oh
wait, no, you go, James, go ahead.
no, please, Dennis, it's all you. I'm gonna zip it.
So these are the words that have appeared in the highest rated thoughts in the exchange. And as you can see here, when we got into this notion of student voice and learning more, voice emerged as a key word. Engage, share, lots of thoughts about different, education, people looking for the best way. How do you include the various groups? And there's an opportunity, if we had the time, to click on those words and really look at the thoughts in which those words came up. So the word cloud is always super important. Like there, you can see, how do we build trust for students? And exactly where those words have come up throughout the exchange. Now, James, if you go on down, we talked about top thoughts. Let's see if there are any differences in this conversation in terms of our participants. Or is there a high level of agreement in this conversation? As you can see, there are some people who really, really believe, James, my eyes may not be the best because all decisions should be made with all students in mind. 24 people believe that to be very important. 7 people, not as much. If you were working with your leadership team in the school district, this may be a place where you'd want to go deeper. Many people believe that many people want to know, how can you use ThoughtExchange to elevate student voice?
Yeah.
Some not as much. Maybe it's because those 7 already know. We hope that's the reason. But absolutely, ThoughtExchange can be used to go deeper. Curious about how students are helping the district around navigating COVID mandates. 4.3 stars for some, not as high for others. But that middle column, if this were a contentious issue with people on both sides, that middle column, I like to call it, James, where we find common ground and where we know that we have a great starting place to make a high level or second order change. So there's agreement on both sides of these two groups around how to intentionally include the voices of many of our marginalized students. Both sides believing that's important work to really delve into. How do you diversify student voice and who you hear from? We talked about that earlier. Both sides believe that to be important. So I really, really love that tool. And then James, before we get ready to break for the day, show them the themes that have emerged automatically in this conversation around student voice. And James, you're gonna have to help me because my print is pretty small.
Yeah, so what this effectively is showing us is it's categorizing the thoughts that you have all contributed into theme sets and using keywords in order to structure that. And so we have a set of themes here around engage, voice, hear. This love table is perhaps an illustration of the AI just being a little bit off in this one, but participation, building a portrait of a graduate. This is really just trying to take conceptually what's alike in the range of different thoughts that have emerged within any conversation and reflect that back to you in a structured thematic way so that you can appreciate the contours of any conversation, not only in a thought by thought kind of way, but also in a thematic way. So this is what we see right here.
So James, I've been trying to learn more about student voice, and I've ran an exchange with 60 people from across the country. And the CEO of ThoughtExchange, he calls me in his office the same way the superintendent might call someone in their office and say, what have you learned? And man, I want to be prepared, so I might want a PowerPoint presentation. What do we have here? By way of the one conversation we've had this afternoon.
So just to elaborate on what Dennis is talking about here, this is a feature that allows you to have in quick order a slide deck that really encapsulates all of the key data from the conversation that you've just conducted, where we get to see, who's participated, some of the key issues that have really jumped off the page and have high resonance amongst the group. Again, the bigger the word, the higher that theme set was rated within the conversation. And then specifically, we get to see some of those key thoughts that have really risen and been rated highly through consensus, as well as some of the key themes that have emerged within the conversation, and really drilling in to each of those to indicate what's the context within each of these themes. When we talk about engagement as a key theme, here's what folks are saying about that. And so this is really just to help accelerate the actionability of whatever it is that you're learning when you ask a question through ThoughtExchange. What does that mean in terms of key insights that have emerged, and how can we work with that data to inform our next steps so that we're really being accountable to, we didn't just ask for the sake of asking, we asked so that we could learn something and do differently as a result when we move forward.
Absolutely, James. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. Give it up for Mike. Give it up for Mike. I mean, I've been a fan. I follow him on social media, and he's really doing the right work for the right reasons. And for that, Mike, I commend you. Thank you for joining us in this Equity Leadership Series. It's super important. No student cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And this is why we do this equity work, because I've never encountered any students in any group who were not geniuses. These are Asa Hilliard's words, not mine. There's no mystery in terms of how you teach them. The first thing you do is you love them. The second thing you do is treat them like human beings. And there's no way to do that unless you hear their voice. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Honored to be with you all. Keep doing the great work you're doing. What a wonderful, wonderful pick me up today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.